Let me tell you something. For a movie dealing with the fastest man alive, they sure did take a hell of a long time to finally come out with it. What's going on, guys, and welcome to my review of The Flash, one of my most anticipated films of the DC verse. Now that we're finally getting it, they've been talking about it since before the show started. That's been like 9+ years. So we're finally getting it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I really do appreciate it. So The Flash tells the story of Barry Allen, the fastest man alive, aka The Flash, who goes back in time to save his mother, but in doing so, creates chaos in the universe and time. So, as I said, this is one of my most anticipated films of the DC era. Ever since the DC started back in 2013 with Man of Steel, I have always had a deep love for The Flash. I just love the story arc and just the fact that this guy has been through so much. Not that I'm saying there's not other superheroes that's been through as much pain as this guy has, but there's just something about The Flash that just always intrigued me. And for 9+ years, we have suffered in silence, us movie fans anyway, while at the same time yearning for a film, but getting the TV show, which is not bad at all. I'm getting ready to have all 9 seasons once that last season comes out. I thought it was a really good show. But whenever it finally came to the movie, something lit in me. Then all this other stuff started happening. All the production, behind the scenes problems with Ezra Miller, and then COVID, and then the directors change, and it's just, I came to the point to where, are we ever going to see this thing? And then they announced that the whole entire DC universe is going to change, the whole entire DC content with James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over, and it's just, when the hell is this going to actually come out? So whenever it was finally announced that they finally, went on with production, and despite all of what went on with Ezra Miller, luckily all his parts was filmed by the time he went nuts. But luckily we finally got it, and they gave a release date, and it's out. So I was rejoiced. I was finally happy. Like I said, that's the one DC property that I was hoping to see, all these years. I'm sure as a lot of others out there as well. So I just got back from watching it, and I gotta say, it wasn't bad. I actually enjoyed myself. I wasn't expecting to hate this movie, but the negatives I heard about it, I was kind of expecting to feel the same way, and I definitely do, now sitting here with you guys. But before we get into all that, let's get into the positives for The Flash. And bear with me, folks, if I seem like I'm getting sidetracked at any point, I apologize. This is another review that I have not done notes on, just like I did with The Boogeyman. I want to get this out to you as soon as I can, so forgive me if I get sidetracked. Just bear with me, folks. But the first thing I want to mention is the fact that The Flash has always been the most near and endearing to me. I'm not saying that I've suffered the same loss that this guy has, but it's just something about this storyline, just about this guy losing his mother. Like, same thing with the show. It just really captivates the character for me. And it just really gives that good motivation that you want in a good superhero. Much like the Batman story of how he lost his parents and then he goes off to do his own brand of justice because of that. Barry Allen becomes a forensic investigator because of what happened to his mom. So, cause and effect, the way that this character has been laid out, and just the lore and the storyline, just the fact that this guy loses his mother to this thing when he was a kid has always been fascinating. I'm not trying to sound dark here, but it's just the whole storyline, and then the fact that this guy gets superpowers later on. He's much older. He gets struck by that lightning. Like I said at the beginning of this review, this is the one character I've always wanted to see a movie out of, and was kind of, in the back of my mind, was kind of hoping it would be one of those that would save the DC. This was before they started making the switch and the change to what they've already started doing to the DC verse. The Flash is just one of those characters that I've always been more entertained by. And maybe that's all the years that I've watched the show. I'm not trying to compare the show too much to the movie because it is completely different. The movie and the TV show is completely separate. But it's just one of those properties that I've always wanted to see in a movie, and I'm glad that it's finally out and I finally got to see it. And moving on from that, I've got to say that the action was pretty solid here. You get some basic superhero tropes and superhero things that we've seen many times before, but they do it in a way that's pretty exciting and pretty entertaining. There's a negative side to that, which I'll get to later on in this review, but I really did find the action in this to be quite enjoyable. Rolling into this, I wasn't expecting anything less or anything more. The action was spot on. There's plenty of moments to be had here, especially for fans of this comic book property of The Flash. There's definitely a lot of things that happens in this that will definitely satisfy your comic book shtick, if I may say. And the way that the sequences was filmed and the way the sequences was shot was done pretty well. Minus what I'm getting ready to say in the negatives. I think that they did a really good job with the shots, the angles, and just the way that the action sequences was just choreographed. I really did enjoy the way that they, handled this movie in that prospect. For someone that wasn't expecting anything less, it was pretty satisfying. Now, despite on everything that went down with Ezra Miller, of him going crazy, and you've heard the news, despite all that, I'm not going to let that get in the way of the way I felt about his portrayal as Barry Allen. I think he did a really good job, especially in those very tight emotional moments with him and his mother. And just that all-around emotion that you get whenever you see a good actor act and just deliver. I think he did a really good job here. Despite all that went down with him in real life, I think Ezra Miller did a really good job here. I think they made the right choice of casting him, even though we might not see him anymore after this. I think they made a really good choice. Despite that, I have no doubt whoever they get next, because I guarantee you they're not going to bring Ezra Miller back because of circumstances, but yeah, I'm pretty sure whoever they pick next will hopefully top this. But for this movie, I think Ezra Miller did a really good job, especially in delivering all of those emotional states and just the all-out deliverance of his performance. And Sasha Calle, who played Supergirl, I think she did a really good job. She was much different from what the show showed, from what the Supergirl show portrayed her as. But for this film, I think she did a really good job, and I hope we see a lot more of her in the future. I hope we see a little bit more of her. I have no idea what James Gunn has planned, but I hope it involves bringing that character back in some capacity. I think she did a really good job. I think she was spot on. Like I said, she was completely different from the show, from what I forget the actress who played her in the show did, but she was completely different from that. She was more serious. She was more focused. Not that she wasn't in the show, but in the show she seemed like she was more of happy-go-lucky, cheery. But after you see what she's endured when she first shows up, you'll definitely understand why she has the attitude switch or change than the other Supergirl from the show. I think she did a really good job. She was spot on. Her performance was top-notch, 100%. Like I said, I know I keep on repeating myself, and again, noteless, but I really do hope we get to see more of this character despite how it played out. I like the fact that they brought Michael Shannon back. I remember there was a story to where Michael Shannon, after he did Man of Steel, he could have cared less about these superhero movies. There was interviews, I can't exactly quote these, but there was interviews to where he just could give zero freaks about what happened. The story was, from my understanding, when it got to The Flash, everything that went down with Zack Snyder, who was the director of Man of Steel, Warner Brothers pretty much screwed him over something big on Justice League, and I won't get into any of that right now, but it was pretty bad. And Michael Shannon, from what I understand, hated that. And I think that was the main reason why he didn't want to return for any more like superhero movies in general. From what I understand, when it came to The Flash, the way they got him back was Michael Shannon wanted to ask Zack Snyder, or Michael Shannon asked Zack Snyder if that was okay for him to come back, because he felt like he was betraying him, otherwise, for being in this movie, especially under the new regimes, which, to be honest, this movie actually wasn't done under James Gunn and Peter Safran's watch. It was done by the original regimes, so just to clear that up. But Michael Shannon felt like he was betraying Zack Snyder for being in this, so he had to ask permission. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It kind of goes to show you how good of a working relationship that they have. So yeah, there I go, getting sidetracked. Again, bear with me. I think it was pretty cool that they brought Michael Shannon back as General Zod. I think he did a really outstanding job. Granted, he's not in this movie much, but when he does show up, kind of brought back some of that nostalgia from 10 years ago. Michael Keaton was awesome. I've got the original Batmans, which I've not seen in a while, but I remember a good deal of. But Batman Returns, he was really good in those. And I thought it was really cool that they decided to do this storyline of a Flashpoint where they bring in the multiverse, and especially when he changes the timeline, and then he goes to the Michael Keaton era of Batman. And I thought that was really cool. Michael Keaton, he's a really good actor. I've always, thought highly of him. And seeing him back in that bat suit, again, with the nostalgia, really brought it back for me. He did a really good job. I think he just got better with age, playing this part. I'm not expecting to see him as Batman anymore, but seeing him as Batman in The Flash was really cool. He hadn't lost a beat, and I think he did a really good job as Batman.
You are?
Yeah. I'm Batman.
Now as I dive into my mixed, I gotta say that the comedy in here, some of it did fall flat, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst that I've seen. There were certain aspects in this movie to where it kind of felt awkward, especially with the physical aspect of the comedy, which I won't get into here, but it kind of did fall flat. But I will say that the other half was actually really good. I actually did find myself chuckling at a lot, especially whenever it was showing the two Barry Allens together and them fighting and bickering. I thought that aspect of the comedy actually worked. It did feel like they were trying, but the other aspect, like I said, it just fell flat. It's just something that I was really expecting. We hadn't had a good comedy or a good solid 100% comedy in something like this in a long time. And it's just, like I said, it's something that I have expected to go down the way it did. But again, not all of it was crap. Not all of it, fell flat. There was some good moments. There's some laughable moments that I did find myself chuckling. As much fun as I had in this film, as much excitement that I had, and as much of a good time that this movie brought out for me, there was one major issue that stuck out like a sore thumb. And it's something that happened quite often, especially by the third act, that just took me completely away from it. As I dive into my negatives, this is an issue that everybody that I'm seeing, everybody has the same issue with, and rightfully so. But the CGI in this was horrendous. So much so to the point where a lot of the characters started looking like PS2 characters, like a really cheaply early 2000s design. And it was so grueling, it was so unnerving that it got me thinking, okay, just last week, or just the other day, I watched Transformers Rise of the Beasts, and that CGI in that movie was way better than this. And it got to the point where it made me think, why are we still doing this in 2023? Why are we still putting PS2 type looking characters in movies? It looks so bad that you think that the filmmakers was rushing so fast in this that they didn't even bother to do any touch-up work or check behind anybody or just, do like a final stage of the CGI. They just decided to do it in one fell swoop and, dump it. We don't care. It just got so grueling and it was so unnerving, and it just really took me out of the movie completely. And like I say, it's just something that happens quite often, quite a few times, that it was a bummer. It was a definite bummer. And it's just something that I felt like really could have, improved, like on a massive scale. But in the end, guys, despite all that, this was a definite good time. It's definitely something that comic book fans will enjoy. If you can get past all the bad CGI, it's definitely worth your time. It's a definite joyride and should be put on a pedestal. So The Flash, what was your thoughts on it? Have you seen this yet? Are you a fan of this property? Did you like the way that this movie was presented? Are you somebody that wants to see more of this? Or are you somebody that just wants the new DC version to just start and just doesn't care at all? Leave me a comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.